Israel will return to fighting if true 60 days don't yield deal to end the Gaza war, confirming that he is looking to get to a deal to end the war. What does that say? Because listen, we need to understand things. This war, this genocide isn't going to go on forever. But what do we understand, and where are things going? And why is Benjamin Netanyahu all of a sudden using the term the ending of the war, a term that he refrained from using, by the way? It's because he's preparing the ground. As a matter of fact, Benjamin Netanyahu is already starting, or has already started from several weeks, to push for the next election campaign. You know, having these kind of interviews with children and what have you. Now preparing the ground after coming from the United States, visiting the memorial location of Thomas Jefferson, if I'm not mistaken, because he was like the father of American democracy and, you know, the will of the people. Going back to Israel to talk about the will of the people, you know, the will of the Israeli people. He's preparing himself for elections. But this is a preparation for the time when Netanyahu does decide to go on a ceasefire. And I mentioned before, the prospect of Netanyahu reaching a ceasefire will increase next month when the Israeli Knesset goes on a holiday, a break, because then no one can take any motion against him. There would not be any risk to collapse the government. Following that, it would be very close to the Israeli holidays. Then we're already into 2026. 2026, Netanyahu ideally would want an election happening before the budget passes. And that's towards the end of March and the beginning of April 2026. In the meantime, the talks are still ongoing. As a matter of fact, Israel is having more concessions in the talks. They're showing more leniency now. That leniency cannot be separated from the images that you saw from Gaza and the scenes of this genocide soldier and the other genocide soldiers being eliminated and neutralized by the Palestinian resistance. Why? Because they have losses. If they don't have losses, it's a separate story. But they have losses. So apart from the fact that the Palestinian resistance has the prisoners of war as leverage, they have their resistance to Israel, and it's unbelievable increase in recent weeks, by the way. In recent weeks, the Palestinian resistance escalated to levels unseen, and that's 2 years into a full-blown genocide, siege, starvation, mass murder, infanticide, urbanicide, whatever, solasticide, whatever you want to call it, all combined. But the Americans are now asking Hamas for a favor. What is that favor? That favor is basically delay the talk about withdrawing and the lines of withdrawal from the Israeli. They're telling Hamas, Israel is still finding it difficult now to agree to, withdrawing to certain areas inside of the Gaza Strip. They want a parameter or a security buffer zone that's bigger than the previous one that they withdrew up until in March, even before March, from January up to March, because in March they had a further withdrawal, or a few weeks into the ceasefire. But now they want to remain in certain areas, like 2 to 3 kilometers in Rafah, to create this new Morag access, and then 1 to 2 kilometers all across of the Gaza Strip. They basically want to take away 40% of the Gaza Strip. That's what it means. But the Palestinian resistance is saying, no way, it's not going to happen. That's a position of strength. The Palestinian resistance already forced Israel many times before, by the way, and way before Al-Aqsa flood began, to withdraw and to expand the fishing area and to have the borders literally on the edge of the Gaza Strip where they're meant to be, because Israel was looking for like security zones and what have you. So now they're pushing for that too. And from an American perspective, they're viewing that Israel is showing more leniency on the other parts, and this is still a tricky thing. So they're asking the Palestinian resistance, delay it until the end, please. So Israel is showing more leniency on the ending of the war. We had Netanyahu even stating that, even when it comes to the aid. And there were also reports in Israel that it's removing its veto, right? One of the Israeli media channels said Israel removed its veto of releasing senior Palestinian prisoners, important names, leaders of Palestinian political movements or leaders inside of the Palestinian resistance who participated in very big actions against the state of Israel. So there's still potential there, but again, no declaration yet. That is primarily due to the timeline that Benjamin Netanyahu wants to reach the ceasefire at. Again, of course, no one can confirm anything, but this is what it looks like where things are going to. And by the way, this invasion in Lebanon that he had, that I spoke about in one of the previous videos, this invasion is to cover up the huge failure that's happening in Gaza, to show some sort of success, and also cover up the fact that they might be making more concessions in having, limited invasions inside of Lebanon here and there. And he's done that before by having a full-blown war against Lebanon. So that's on the negotiation front. And of course, the developments on the ground from the Palestinian resistance. But there was one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about. You see, I told you about Zionists before, and that the Zionists are, some of them can be followers of different religions. So you'll have the Jewish Zionist, you'll have the Christian Zionist, who are the majority, and then you have the Muslim Zionist. Now, the Muslim Zionists, they usually try not to talk too much. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we had a visit to Israel from who? From Muslim scholars, led by a Tunisian imam who lives in France and close to Macron, by the way, called Hassan Shalghoumi. Hassan Shalghoumi and a couple of other Muslim clerics going to Israel. This was one of the videos that was released. Of course, they went like to the 7th of October propaganda tour, and this Shalghoumi was like seen crying. And another bearded guy from Britain as well was going there and crying, and and this Shalghoumi was saying, you're the representation of democracy, you're the representation of freedom, etc., etc. But it didn't just stop there. He went and saw an Israeli minister. Then we had this video when he went and saw that Israeli minister sitting next to an Israeli minister, and with the other Muslim scholars chatting to him and hugging him now, and trying to kiss his hand. Trying to kiss his hand too. Kissing the hand of a Zionist. I mean, kissing the behind of a wild boar is easier than kissing the hand of a Zionist. But this man is going there trying to kiss the hand of an Israeli minister, and going and praising the Israelis and Israel, and saying that Iran is the enemy, and Iran is the enemy of Muslims, and what have you. Deviating, no mention about anything, of course, in Gaza. And he also went and met with Yitzhak Herzog, the Israeli president, as we can see in this image here. Look, your Muslim scholars going to Israel to show solidarity. A couple of things that I wanted to note here. Number one, these people represent no one but themselves. I mean, anyone who even shares something similar, really. These people are almost non-existent in terms of population in the Muslim and Arab world. So even if you have like people who are not either active or talkative or what have you, they wouldn't support Israel, But these people went there, a fringe, a small group that has gone astray, very, very far astray. I mean, people, we say "Wala ad-dallin," right, when we pray, and they supposedly pray and say "Wala ad-dallin," as in, don't make us from those who went astray. And anyway, they're going to glamorize Israel and to whitewash the crimes and show solidarity. And this guy over here, he even wore this, the 7th of October thing. This sympathize with the 7th of October. So first and foremost, these people have nothing to do whatsoever with representing Muslim people. Secondly, Islam as a religion that urges you to, stand on the side of justice and stand in face of oppression, right? But then there's a sensitive period here. There's a sensitive timing. Why now? Couldn't they have gone before? Israel needed sympathy. And Violet, our moderator, is showing dollar signs. Probably. There's probably money too. But why now? Well, they're having the talks, right, about this peace process with the Arab world, and we're going to have these Abraham Accords, and so many countries are going to join in, and, we're going to open a new horizon in the region. Apart from the fact that, there's nothing concrete to prove that new naturalization with Israel is about to happen. Security agreements, security understandings, governments might have that, even very hostile governments who have no sort of connection. But naturalization, the way Israel is trying to sell it, we're seeing nothing substantial here. And I mean, even the countries who already had peace treaties with Israel or went into what's falsely labeled as the Abraham Accords, what have they gained? Have they gained anything? Is it putting them in a powerful position? Or is it putting them in a weaker position, in a more despised position by everyone, by their own people, and generally, and what is Israel going to do to them exactly? And of course, with each country that went into these deals with Israel, they had their own demands too. They had their own interests. They wanted certain technology from Israel, and also Israel wanted recognition. Israel always begs for recognition. Netanyahu himself begs for recognition from Arab and Muslim states. You know why? Because Israel is a thief, pariah, fake state. A state based on theft and killing. And what does a thief want more than be recognized? That's why they beg the Arab states. And it doesn't matter what you think about the Arab and Muslim states, by the way, and their position and, the lack of action and how bad and how appalling, all of that. But Israel constantly begs them for recognition. Why? Because it's a country based on theft, and a thief always wants legitimacy, wants recognition. Therefore, it strives to get this recognition. Now, Netanyahu, and although these people met with Herzog, but Herzog is still a Zionist who is the president of Israel. So, enough said. Netanyahu is trying to show the Israeli public, because he is very, very interested in what the Israeli public has to say. He's trying to show them that, you know, whatever concessions that I make now, they're going to be worth it. Because look, we have bearded Muslim people who supposedly follow the same religion that we constantly speak bad about, by the way. They're coming here and are sympathizing with us. Why is he doing that? So that the people can be convinced in Netanyahu's position that, look, even if we do reach a ceasefire inside of the Gaza Strip, there's going to be good results. We're going to have more paid Muslim Zionists coming to Israel and whitewashing the crimes. Or like this Shalghoumi said, come and praise Israel and you know, say that they are the representation of brotherhood. They are the representation of brotherhood. They're the representation of democracy. They are the representation of hope. And he was tearful. Him and the other British Muslim dude there, they were crying like that when they were saying the October the 7th Zio Wood tour. You know, the Zio Wood tour that Israel takes these people to? They bring journalists to come and view the video, which, by the way, doesn't include any sort of massacres, but I saw everything. You see Palestinian resistance fighters keen on innocent lives, and no exchange unless they feel like threatened or someone tries to do something or what have you. When on the other side we have a live stream genocide 24/7. So again, I mean, these people, they represent no one but themselves, but they're there for a reason. And that reason is primarily due to Benjamin Netanyahu and his image and any potential concessions he's going to make in Gaza to prove to his own people that it might be worth it, because, look, we're going to have recognition from 9 Muslim Zionists who came to Israel and, you know, started to hail Israel.